Oh my.
Thank you, Stephen. Haven't heard you.
I'm gonna open the Wolcott Select Board meeting for December 21st, 2002. At 6 p.m. Do you have any amendments to the agenda tonight?
I did not.
So approval of minutes of December 7th. I'll take a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Have a second.
I wasn't here.
I'll second.
Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions? The only thing I saw is it's Roger Legit, it's not Richard. Other than that, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So carried. Comments from the community. Yeah.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me. Senator Westman should be here momentarily. I just wanted to make myself available. Got legislative session coming up, so if anybody, select board has anything that they want me to think about this legislative session, I would be interested in knowing and keeping that dialogue open. I've been sitting in the car since Saturday, driving to Western Maryland, cleaning out some storage units and driving back, so. Go easy on me.
So maybe we'll wait a minute because
Yeah, the senator should be
should
here.
send you an email because there is a concern we want to talk to you about. Why don't we move on to correspondence and see if he just comes in a few minutes?
Yeah, that'd be great. It's a mistake, so.
Then we'll come back to you. There isn't a lot of correspondence, but is it the Halsey check? First payment has come in for the clothes reflecting at the transfer station for $57.89. Which is good.
It's great. Yeah.
How long has it been up there now, do you think?
Been there a month.
Wow.
So we're actually getting money coming in?
Yeah. And it's being heavily used. It's very, very popular. And I think it's also attracting people from outside of work, in which they're also dumping their trash. So we're collecting trash money.
So is Sylvia keeping an eye and make sure it's not left out in the sun, and also yard sale leftovers?
The clothing you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's in an enclosed weatherproof.
Oh, I know that, but
But they have to be in a paper, in a plastic bag. I did find a bunch on the ground and I got after them to get them in the bin and called Michelle. Cause it was like overflowing.
well, I just meant for the quality of product going through there, that if he's watching to make sure somebody's not
Oh, putting garbage in.
basically, clothes that have been left out in the winter all summer, and you can't even tell what they used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the real answer to that question is probably not. We gotta talk to them about it. It was intended to.
Are we mandating clear plastic bags for the clothing? It's hard to find them.
Well, I think it's only that it has to be clean and dry.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what condition it's in. Because if they can't resell it, then they just use it for rags. I don't see how Sylvia would ever be able to.
No, I wasn't trying to
Deal with that.
But it's just,
And we gotta receive a card also about the transfer station. Thank you to the town of Wolcott and the select board for letting the cancer network continue with the bottle shed. This past year, we have collected $3,013.15 worth of bottles and cans that will help so many people in need. Thank you, Mark Mahulier.
Wonderful.
The transfer station will be closed on Christmas and New Year's. So that's all I have for correspondence, so we're ready for Dan and Rich. Thank you for coming.
Sorry, late.
That's all right.
I went to their house for dinner and I ordered the pizza.
You can always Zoom too. It's a long drive from Cambridge.
It's not that far. They need to eat.
So I had originally, emailed Dan, which I hope you talked to. Our concern is the, cost of policing the sheriff, which is every year. This year, I believe the budget's going up 8%. We've been in negotiations with Hyde Park and Johnson for a while. Just because it's such a huge increase to our budget.
So I can talk about some legislation that I've been working on with Senator Westman.
Okay.
That may be able to help the sheriff reduce their costs, and what it is, the Lemoyle Sheriff's Department is in the 30-year retirement.
Right.
And so, one thing that keeps happening is that, individuals that go to work for the sheriff's department, don't stay a long time. And so, once they find other employment in a 20-year retirement versus a 30-year retirement, they move. Now, this is something that is, Lemoyle County Sheriff's Department is kind of in this with, there's a couple others down in southern Vermont, but most,
There's 6.
there's 6 that are in the 30, but the rest of them are in the 20. And it had something to do from,
There's 2 that don't have any.
Right.
And then so it's about split.
so this is something that, we met with when we put in legislation last time. There's the new treasurer coming in that
Right.
we're gonna try to connect with. We've been talking to Sheriff Markle about this because it's definitely a concern of his, I know. I don't really have a lot to do with this budget, except that he's brought this to our attention that, he's constantly having to train and bring in new staff, which is adding to his costs, so.
So weren't
It's
they
one of the
doing a
small
summer
things.
study?
Pardon me?
Were they doing a summer study?
And I think you need to back up a little bit from the summer study. So Dan and I introduced companion bills in the
Right.
House and the Senate to do that. I got I worked with the Senate Government Operations Committee, and they passed out the bill that I introduced in the Senate unanimously out of the committee. It got to appropriations, and we got to the point, and the treasurer came in and testified against it, as she has consistently all the way through. And I think at this point, the outgoing chair of government ops in the Senate was just beside herself because she's wanted to have some sort of uniform retirement across the board for all of law enforcement in the state, very much like New Hampshire does. And has not been able to get the treasurer to move. So in the budget, I tried to put the language in that was in the bill in the budget and was supported by the Government Ops Committee in the Senate. But after the treasurer came in and said, we don't know what this is going to cost and all of that, we put the study in the budget. The outcome of that study, I'm going to be right up front. I think I would say that the present treasurer hijacked the study. And the study, didn't come out exactly the way we wanted it. Roger and I met with, Mike Pichek, the president treasurer. We met with him last week in Winooski. Trying to explain the problem in this, because there's at least 6 counties that have this problem. And what's quite interesting about this is Wyndham and Lamoille are the 2 counties that are doing all of the transports for all of the DCF cases. And so the 2 counties that are doing the work, most of the work for human services in the state, are the 2 that are affected the most. I think it's something, he's lost at least 3 deputies in the last 18 months. Jesus. They're at a cost of north of $40,000 a deputy to train and get up to speed. It's about right around 20 just to send them to the police academy. And so we're trying to get to the new treasurer, trying to educate him on the piece. It's, this is an issue that's not really fair, and for me, it's quite frustrating. For example, Washington County in the last year and a half, for the first time, elected to have retirement for their deputies. The first time they had no retirement, and they were allowed to go into exactly the 20-year plan that we'd like to, and we're being penalized because in 2001 or 2, they made a decision to give the 30-year retirement, which at the time we were on the cutting edge of giving deputies a benefit that they didn't have any of. So I think Dan and I are going to introduce the bill again. I'm hopeful that Senator Kitchell in Caledonia County has been quite supportive of us doing something. She helped me put together the language last year that we put in the budget to do the study. And she specifically had asked to be included in that study, and she wasn't. So, we're trying.
And working against us is there's 2 sheriff's departments that are really not functioning. And in the media, as you saw, I guess there's one down in Addison and Franklin. And so that's kind of working against us in the sense that, you read in the newspaper about what's happening there, and then they're like, well, why should we support this? We have a functioning sheriff's department in Lamoille County. It's just, so we're going to be having to deal with that this coming session.
So it seems like the retirement is a piece of it, but there's a bigger piece. When I went in there, the whole inequity of how policing is happening in the state of Vermont. And I know it's hard, but it's got to be looked at. It's piecemeal.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was exactly what Jeanette White, but the central piece around the benefit side that would even that out is the retirement. And she said for a very long time that we needed to look at the whole package of the benefits around. So you don't have these departments ripping each other off. We've been ripped off in Lamoille because of the benefit package by Morristown, Stowe, and the state police.
I agree with Linda that we've heard about the insurance problem for years. We've talked about it with the sheriff and with yourselves. And I'm glad that we now have a new treasurer, which might help open the door on that. But it is one small piece. Our budget for the little town of Wolcott is upward to 30% sheriff. 30% of our budget goes to sheriff. That's high for a little town like this. And I think the sheriff does a good job. I think their budget, we looked at their operational budget and it's tight, you know. The insurance is a piece of it and changing that will help. But it doesn't solve the bigger problem. It's a statewide problem, if not a national problem. But the little towns have to fend for themselves, and with a 30% hit on your budget, it upsets people. They're starting looking at the sheriff and saying, "Where's the visibility? I never see him here." So that kind of hit on your budget attracts that kind of comment from the constituents. And I'm just wondering if the day will ever come when legislation in the state will chip in statewide and help support towns and law enforcement. The other thing is the structure of the sheriff's office is such that their sheriff is really a contract, or is a contract. They go after contracts, and the town of Wolcott's just another contract. And the sheriff is wide open, not that Roger's going to do this, but he's wide open to say, "I got a better deal over here. Wolcott, bye-bye." And that can happen. There's no security whatsoever in this thing. So there's no state financial support. There's no structural security for people. And you start to wonder, do we have to start having our own constable? Do we have to do it ourselves? Because there's no response from the state saying, "Yeah, we recognize the problem and we're going to help you." That from a high level, that's what I think the bigger problem is.
Right. So I think the structure though of how sheriffs are set up, as you say, a contractor is in the Constitution.
Yeah.
You know, that's and in terms of state putting money into law enforcement outside of the state police, you know, I'm not sure on the budget end of things what that looks like, but
I'm sure it's a big deal, and it's very frustrating because I look at the upcoming legislation, and public safety is on the docket.
sure.
But all of the issues that are talking about public safety are talking about things like leadership training and issues of, dealing with police problems and that kind of thing. And I think that's all great. And those are things that you're going to be trying to fund. But if the town can't afford a police department, who cares?
Yeah.
And that's really the pickle.
And I think that the state putting money into sheriff's departments with what's happening in Addison, frankly, kind of an uphill battle. Just to, just to be realistic on it right now with what's happening there.
Well, it's even within the sheriff's department, it's a hodgepodge. Because there are 28 state police deputies in the sheriff's departments around the state, and they all have in the retirement side a 20-year plan. Those get all taxed into what they get for healthcare when they retire, and they are funded right now through them, and they're placed right next to the deputies that that you're paying for. And then within our own sheriff's department, there's a whole bunch of this that's being funded because we're doing all the transports for DCF. So it's kind of pieces all over the place. And we haven't had, my frustration is we haven't even been able to talk about the retirement. I can't get to any of the other things because I can't even get to that. And I don't know how you know, and quite frankly, as a senator from, this county, when you walk in the door and every time you go to open your head about this, the treasurer, is there to try to knock you down. It's,
Yeah, make sure.
Well, I understand, like, why would Essex be concerned, or Morristown, or Stowe? They have their own police department.
Yep.
So when in the
It's
legislature,
basically-
those representatives, it's like, it's not important, you
well,
know?
it's actually, if they're ripping off, our trainees
Hmm.
and not having to pay for that.
So this has also been really good because I'm part of the Rural Economic Development Caucus, and they talk about just like how do we make sure that rural Vermont is represented when, you know, a majority of the representatives in the House are from Chittenden County, and so I'll bring this up there, see if I can get some of my colleagues that are from rural areas that are also in the same situation where they're seeing these increases if they want law enforcement. It's mostly like, you know, reps from the Northeast Kingdom and Southern Vermont where it's a lot more rural than Chittenden County. The problem is that you know, just that, you know, you get this piecemeal where Morrisville is not really part of it because they have their own law enforcement, Stowe, and, you know, so it is a limited number of representatives that I'm gonna be able to say,
Yeah,
you know, that are dealing with the same issue coming from their select board, so. But it's something to bring up there, and I will see what kind of feedback I get there, because I'm sure we're not the only town that's seeing 8% increase in their law enforcement,
So
or they don't have any, you know?
And so the state police, are they still contracting to some towns?
Yes,
Yeah, I think Waterville, Belvedere. Eden,
Cambridge.
yeah, Cambridge too, right? You don't have sheriff's covers there.
And so do they have a person patrolling someone around there that they pay, or
Um,
how does
it's somewhat.
someone?
yeah. Well, this 8% is hitting, you know, your districts, which, you know, in Johnson, Hyde Park.
Sure.
We're all, and, you know, quite honestly, they pay a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
So that 8% hit at Johnson's,
Yes, they are not happy,
it is a big one. Yeah.
and I don't even know if Hyde Park's agreed to anything yet.
They're in a tizzy.
We're going to Johnson, early January, the first Thursday, I believe.
Yeah.
But,
We should go to paper.
yeah. No, it's definitely a concern for rural Vermont with law enforcement. So. Yeah, I think if you went the route that some towns are going where they don't have it, you're probably not gonna see much. In terms of patrol or what, you know, if you're just relying on state police, so.
And I think the state police have actually been very upfront about that is, you know, they can't, you know, if something really serious happens, yeah,
Right.
they're gonna show it, but you're not gonna see much more of that. And they said something.
Supposed to be new chair of government ops, so. You know, we can definitely work on that legislation to continue it, at least it's one of the things that we probably can do. So.
It's good to start by taking a deep dive into all the law enforcement in the state, and
That was, yeah,
Well, a third of the cost of every employee is their benefit package.
Mhm.
And it's healthcare.
Right.
And it's that benefit side that has been really increasing
Yeah.
faster than the other side. And I am hopeful that Mike Pichek has spent his life in banking and insurance, so he gets a lot of those issues. And I'm hopeful that, he seemed very receptive to talk to me.
He's not gonna come in and testify against it right away, right up, and he,
Well,
hopefully, he's from Brattleboro.
I'm hopeful, but, you know,
Right.
but we do hear you.
I think that's our biggest concern right
Mhm.
now. Unless you guys have something you wanna
And,
add.
and I want to say, I appreciate you guys getting us here.
Yeah.
To talk about.
You might find you also have that going on in Chittenden County. There's a few police departments towns have, and they can't get officers either, with the same problems. In the bigger towns. So no, Heinsberg hasn't had enough police officers, neither does Richmond. And now, cause they go to Williston, everywhere else, same thing. They get paid better, or Burlington or the state police.
Yeah.
So you might be able to talk with them,
Sure.
maybe work with them on
Yeah,
this.
Heinsberg, you said Heinsberg?
Heinsberg.
Caleb Elder, I know him, it's right near me.
I will just say up to this point, and just part of the frustration. You know, the incoming member of Congress, who was President Pro Tem of the Senate, was fully in support of us doing something about this as the senator from Wyndham County, which is in the same position we are. And we weren't able to move it. I wasn't able to move it, even with the President Pro Tem sitting there trying to help.
Well, it's a new slate of people.
Yeah, sure is.
You know, and
Wow.
we'll keep trying.
Right, it's the best you can do.
Yeah, I don't think, we didn't anticipate it was gonna be, we know it's a really, really tough thing. So, I think it's important for Wolcott and other towns like this to keep it on the,
Yeah.
as much as we can.
And I will say in that the Sheriff's Association, Annie Noonan, and has been very supportive with this, because, you know, you have a whole split within the sheriffs. You've got 6 that have 20-year, 6 that have 30-year. And what you have said, if we could get something going on the retirement, hopefully that will turn into a broader discussion about the whole package. But, you know, because that's the nut that everybody is yelling at the most.
Yeah.
But, you know, we'll let you know when, we get in front of a GovOps committee, and, you know, I for one will tell them that they ought to contact Wolcott to have somebody come down and talk about this in front of their committee.
It's not a bad idea. Maybe back in your old committee.
It's never the same.
No, there will be.
I don't even
Is anybody on?
know.
No, they're all new. We won't do our committee assignments until we get back into this, but
Well, thank you very much
Yeah.
for listening.
I mean, this is definitely something that's been on our radar,
Yeah.
so we've been talking about it for a number of years, trying to figure it out, and so. Yeah,
Can I quickly bring up another
sure.
issue. Actually, one more of a question, I guess. So Wolcott has the North Wolcott Road, which is a paved connector road that is deteriorating. And traffic on it is growing exponentially. And trucking on it.
Yeah.
That's not very happy. And it's the burden of this little town again to try to save that road. You know, to keep it alive. And to do so on a paved road is a multi-million-dollar project. And so the question really is, what do little towns do that have roads like this? That require multi-million-dollar repairs in.
Isn't it classified as like a different highway?
Definitely.
Federally.
So it does get some state money, for federal dollars coming in.
No, we don't get anything more.
You don't get anything more for that?
No, it just has to do with when we have, flooding. and
Is there a
stuff. We
class
get potential
potential
money? Not FEMA.
No, but is there a state classification? I don't know much about this, but glad to look into it more.
I don't.
I
think
thought
so.
like class one highways, or is there a way to get state dollars?
Class one highway is a state highway that goes through,
State, class one's in
Yeah.
state,
yeah,
class two's from 15.
Okay,
All that,
Yeah.
And that's, class one also includes some of the truck routes, like 78 through Spartan. There's a handful of highways that are like that get the higher designation, and they're mostly the big truck routes.
Yeah.
so get back from when Stephanie Bordeaux was our representative. She tried getting more state,
so is it changing,
she didn't, no,
changing the classification of that road?
maybe,
Would that
they
be
didn't
helpful?
want anything to do with it.
I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I'm glad to reach out to Michelle Boomhauer, who's my contact in AMT, and say, what's going on?
Talked to, Rob Moore,
Oh, yeah,
and,
down at LCPC.
yeah,
Yep,
and he just, he acknowledged the problem.
yeah,
And really thought that, you know, little towns, you gotta do it piecemeal. You know, you need to get grants, that maybe will cover a quarter mile of the road.
And the problem with the greens are, and have been in the past is, they've been about 350,000, and you could only get them every 3 years.
Yeah,
But the bigger problem behind all of that is that it's all state money. And unless it's a bridge of over 20 feet, in the town system, you can't get a federal match to work on. So if there was some formula through the feds to be able to help, that we could do matching. Because in the transportation budget, you know, a match for an interstate is 90-10. You can sometimes on those roads like 78, it runs basically between 89 and 87 in New York, you get that higher match rate too. The typical state bridge on 15 or that, or paving of 50 is 80-20. You can get that kind of a match for town bridge that's over 20 feet, but everything else is all straight state dollars. And when you get state budgets that are stretched, and you get the state transportation agency, they're gonna try to do all the stuff that they can get a match for, and that leaves all the towns behind. So really, somebody in Congress has got to recognize that at least some of these communities need some help for their communities.
yeah.
You know, all of the plowing of the roads and the regular maintenance on everything is all state dollars. So when you start doing the pecking order, people aren't gonna go without plowing the roads. So that's the first thing. And then they don't want to leave any federal money on the table, so they go to the match rates of where they can get the highest bang for the buck. So that leaves the aid from the state back to the towns. It puts us behind the 8 ball to get anything to towns.
Yeah,
So at some level, the League of Cities and Towns has got to start saying to the congressional delegation, you have to figure out a way to help us, particularly with extraordinary projects for local communities.
yeah. Okay, great, that's helpful, yeah.
How does a road become on a state highway? Is
Well,
there
they used to have
Like back in the day,
like 15D.
back in the day, the legislature added everything. And
Right.
then,
Cause you look at like 15C down in Johnson, you know, the. You know, state maintained road, it's. Probably sees similar traffic. It's probably less traffic, or probably more traffic than the North Wolcott Road, but.
from the thirties to the 1960s, people added everything. We've hardly added anything.
I bet that one didn't get added. I just.
No, they don't answer it, I mean.
Still, can you put legislation in to add that as a state highway?
We can try, we don't have.
We like
I
it.
mean. I wonder, I have no idea, I don't know what the process is.
And there's serious problems with that road, because of the wild range.
Yeah, oh, no doubt,
And there's erosion,
cuts right into it in a couple of places,
and it's gonna take it out one of these days.
yeah.
Now,
Well,
there's,
there's half of it out already.
yeah.
Couple of
So
times.
there is a project on the, I forget, natural resources or. Where they're looking to do some work on the flow of. The wild range. And so there was some thought that there might be some grant money associated with that.
Mhm.
It could help. And that's kind of what Rob was talking about. It's little things, little pieces here and there.
And most of that is coming down in the funds for the cleanup of the lake. And the phosphorus issues around that.
Right.
And that, so there is every once in a while some specific things about it, but it would seem to me that there are certain town roads that are of higher importance than others, and North Wolcott would fit in that category. And we really need a category of aid from the feds that if it was an 80-20 match, we'd be in a lot better place to get something to do something about. Instead of the haphazard thing that you can get 350,000 every 3 years.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Glad to look into it and get back to you though,
Great.
I have no idea.
But you see, the biggest thing is, it's a shortcut for a lot of the.
Right, yeah, no doubt, sure is.
You got all your solar companies, your bread company,
Yeah.
it's a shortcut, instead of going all the way to Hardwick. And then turn up Fort King.
Yeah.
Take that as a shortcut, because they're gonna save 20 miles.
Yeah, I wonder what the truck traffic is on that, like, when they put out, when LCPC, they can tell what's going over their counters.
Yeah, I think.
18-wheeler versus,
Yeah, I think that we need to order a road study from LCPC.
yeah, because if you could say it's a majority of truck traffic that's, you know, if they check it down towards Morrisville and then up Craftsbury and can show that maybe they're hauling to Casellas or whatever on that road, heavy loads are what you're gonna have to try to make the case on, because that's what's gonna do the most damage to
Okay.
me.
Let's see.
See a lot of
Very
tractor
good.
trailers, 18-wheeler.
Yeah, sure, log trucks,
Heavy equipment, low boys,
yeah,
some, what those tandem log trucks. My house sits kind of close to the road, so
Sure.
I definitely hear that. Like,
well, I mean, I think you could try to make the point, like. If it sees the same traffic loads that like 15C going up to. North Hyde Park from Johnson, you could try to make the case that, hey, look, this is very similar road, and that's a state road, this one's not.
Well, it's a connector to state
Yeah.
road highways.
Yeah, it's very
That's what it
similar to
is.
that, say Johnson to North Hyde Park, where it's cutting up through there, so.
But it still gets back.
traffic, I'm sorry.
I absolutely agree with all of it. If we could create a separate category for things with higher usage and with truck traffic and all of that, and make a category. But the problem then comes behind that the only avenues that the state has to help towns is 100% state dollars. And there ought to be a way to make a case to the feds that if they could add a new category for those higher use roads in local communities, that instead of only helping with it, on bridges that are over 20 feet long, these are roads that have significant usage and priority, and can't you guys do something to create another match in the overall scheme of, even if they didn't give us any more money, if they just would allow us within that system to be able to make a case.
Yeah, and that's gonna all play back into the fact people are driving cars that get better gas mileage and there's less revenue coming in for transportation, fix the roads, so we're gonna have to deal with that too at the same time.
Yeah, well,
Although I was getting 8 miles per gallon in my truck towing a car hauler from Western Maryland today, so.
oh,
I was so.
I only filled up both going and coming.
You can watch the gas gauge move on that thing coming through Pennsylvania. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It took 4 hours to go through a full tank of gas. Not good.
I hope the contests were worth it.
No, they were not.
They were to Amy.
They were to aim. That's why we went.
And that should be very important.
Who knows?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Again,
Thanks. Yeah,
I
and
wanted to catch you before you went to Montpelier.
And we're available too, if stuff comes up, don't hesitate, anybody to reach out, you know, whether in Montpelier or not, just send me an email or text or whatever. So, yeah, definitely make myself available. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And we're glad to have Senator Westman to represent.
We are. Fine.
Wow. Thank you.
Have a happy holiday.
Yeah, you too, thanks. Have a great evening.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Oh, nice, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess we ought to have LCPC do that study. Yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, we can schedule it for the spring. It's a free study, it doesn't consist of.
There's traffic, it's the heavy traffic that's beating the crap out of the road. And. You know, I mean, some of them don't slow down a whole lot either.
Right.
You know?
I always wondered though, because I've been traveling that road, 3 times a week to pick up my granddaughter. And Craftsbury's base seems so much better than ours. Once you get into Craftsbury, it's so much better. Have they spent a lot of money on it?
I think they had to fix a bunch of, through time it washed out, in a few places, they literally just rebuilt the road at a better pace, just
But
washed
a
out.
lot of it has a much better base than ours.
I think it might,
Yeah, it does.
and that's the key to a road.
Well, that's it. It just put that. You shim over it is a waste of money.
He's stripped down, stripped all the way down to the base and rebuilt.
Fix some drainage underneath it.
Yeah, all of that.
And they probably are gonna have to redo the base as well.
Oh, yeah.
In some places, because it was. You never know what you're getting.
But it's,
For some of the
that's the reason for the question is because it's millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But why, like, we're gonna be paving a section. Up by your house next summer, we have a grant. Why isn't the road crew like ditching that and maybe replacing any culverts at the time out of their class 3 construction budget rather than just. You know, paving over what's there?
So you're talking about the patch paving?
No.
If they were to strip.
No, and we're gonna do, we have that grant,
Right,
so
and that would include culverts, new culverts, you know,
it does,
yeah.
I wrote the grant, and I didn't see any culverts in it.
Oh, well, Dylan says that
Uh-huh,
they're putting in new culverts.
Okay. so that must be coming out of their regular construction budget, okay.
I don't think I've
Good.
ever figured out, I have a grate at the corner of my lawn on the certain grass free and I don't think they've ever figured out, I don't think they have any diagrams or maps. I think it drains diagonally under the road down to the river, but nobody seems to know.
You mean like the one that, you mean like the two grates in front of my house that go underneath it?
Yeah,
It's like,
Well, there's all the old maps here from when they built the North Wolcott. I've looked at them because when we had all the FEMA problems, we had to prove that we didn't go on someone else's land.
yeah.
And so we went through those old maps, so you might be able to find some.
Because I know when Skip Patton was still the road commissioner, road foreman, they thawed out the culvert above the house. Instead of checking my grate, the water was flowing. I ended up with 4 feet of water in my basement. I never filed a claim. But I took it on the furnace, took it. We spent 3 days in a really cold winter without central heat. I wasn't happy. It's that was an oversight on their part. I told them I said, really should check this grate and see if it's blocked. And all of it came right down to the basement, every last drop. But you know, there's a lot of problems like that, I think, around the town where you can't be quite sure where something's draining.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the budget, begin our first budget hearing. I think Kurt has been working on the budget this year. I anticipate we'll have a discussion tonight, fill in some figures, and then we'll probably have to do some more research, some more decisions on how we're gonna fund this or how we're gonna reduce it. So we'll probably have a conversation, not sign it until our second meeting in January, but this is the starting point for people to start thinking, what Kurt.
Okay, so, what you have here is the budget with all of the input from the different departments as they've given it to us over the past several select board meetings. And we have plugged in all of those numbers. We plugged in relative numbers from the treasurer as well. And the bottom line, where this stands right now, is that there is a 7% increase over last year. So the number at the very top, the red number, 7%. And the way that breaks out is that the general budget actually declined by 4%. And that was accomplished by eliminating some areas where it wasn't necessary. There were categories that were not necessarily being used. In some cases, and then there's been some reductions as well. For instance, with the highway, we did a reduction in repairs, which is part of our larger plan with the acquisition of the new machinery. So the general budget went down by 4%. The highway budget went up by 9%. And that is having some significant impact in that the 9% is primarily made up of inflationary prices with materials. So whether it be salt or rocks or gravel, every single one of those categories has gone up significantly in price. Culverts have gone up almost 50% in prices. And so I think that the highway budget was well thought out and is running at 9% increase, which is just a little above inflation rates. So when you have a 7% overall increase, you can then deduct from that the revenues. And we won't have the final revenue numbers until the audit comes back, which I am told will happen at the end of this month. But if the fund balance comes back at what Belinda feels would be $60,000 to $70,000, what we put in here was the lower number, 60,000. And what that does to the overall budget is it brings it down to a 3%. If we actually get up to 70,000 in that anticipated revenues, they bring it down to 2%. And 2%, at least in my mind, is in an inflationary time, is a good target. I think it's an understandable target. So that's kind of from the high level what we have here. The sheet will allow you to go through it line by line. I encourage everybody to do that. And which may or may not raise some questions on the line items. We did make a change in which we took some of the two largest projects that went into the transfer station, which is the bulk day, the cleanup day, and we moved those over to the ordinance committee. So those expenses are in this budget. They'll be taken out of the transfer station budget, which will give the transfer station a little bit more margin. I think that was a good idea, but do know that that is in here. The other big variable on here is the equipment replacement fund. Over the past many years, that's been at $77,000. It's highlighted in yellow. And by the way, anything that's highlighted in yellow means that there's still a question. If we bump that up, if we bump it up to 90,000, that will have a pretty negative impact on the overall budget. It will bring our increase up to about 8%. And finally, the employee, this budget does include a increase for full-time and part-time employees. Now that at a high level is what it bears in. There's some impactful data that we don't have yet that will really give us a very, very clear picture of it. And that is anticipated revenues is whether we need to increase the equipment. But those are the two areas.
So we have a supposedly we're going to have a $96,000 balance in our equipment fund at the end of June. But if we were to use it, you know. But as you can see, the payments for a couple of years are gonna be bumped up there quite a bit. We need to figure out how we're going to. For 6 years, it's gonna be pretty high.
Could it be carried forward for those high years maybe, so it's not so high on those high years
Right.
maybe?
Right, so that's the question. Do you wanna raise the 111,000 this year? And save and try to build up some money to 2028 when it's 160,000? Those are things you need. Do they have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I, yeah, that kind of tells you. I prefer, you know, not these ups and downs and budgets and payments to try to find a way to, it's gonna always go up. We know it's always gonna go up, but have it go up nicely.
Smaller amounts,
Yeah,
maybe we could take the 5 feet and break it down to like over 2 or 3 years maybe, so it's more manageable maybe. And it will collect interest, well, it's till you spend it anyways, so it gets some more put toward it, not a lot of that, I think maybe.
Yeah.
there is no way though that I can see in this that we can buy another truck very soon.
Right, because that is the other option is, delay in further purchases. And then, by 2027, even though the ideal situation is you turn it in, at that point and get a new one, it's reasonable if it's well taken care of, if you can keep it for a couple extra years outside of the lease. There's no penalty or harm in doing that. But what we have spent so far is really the key issue.
But international, 2008, the present truck, I don't know whose truck that is. That present truck isn't currently leased though, is it?
No.
No.
So does the sheet make sense to everybody? It's been built in a way that you can, if you add a number or reduce a number or add to a number, it reflects up here on the top right away. So you can see if it comes to where we're gonna need to cut something, you just change it in the spreadsheet and you'll see if it has any effect on the increase.
So one decision that we need to make, or one of them, many, is in the highway union contract, they get a 3% raise. This budget is plugged in that, the other town employees would get a 3% raise. How do you feel about that with the way inflation is? Inflation is 8.75%,
So the union contract is a 3%.
yeah, we're locked into the thing down 3%.
And they're getting a raise too.
No, that is no raise. They will get a 3% raise, and will that be July 1st?
Correct, it's on fiscal year, yeah.
Yeah, so that is their wage, 3%. In the past, what have we given? We've given 2%.
The big last year was 3%, was it?
I know it's a difficult time with the almost rampant inflation, but with the budget the way it is, I don't know if we can really afford to go more than 3%.
Oh, no, we
Oh,
can go more.
No, I'm just asking you.
So, with the union contract, that's locked in. We can't do anything, can't change it. So it's just 3%.
Yeah.
And I think the question is, should the rest of the employees also be at 3%? And just to give you some sense of what that means is, so the other employees are going to be, the library, town clerk, assistant town clerk, listers, and zoning. And that is between 939 and 941. So it's about 4,000 numbers. Now, if I was to eliminate that, it has no impact on these percentages.
I think I'll read the sentence there. Gave the listers an increase. And September. So. That's not fair.
I'd say it's, yeah, it's fair because you've got the road to your union that's getting a 3%. I think it's fair.
Yeah.
To give all the other employees the same thing. That's
Okay, that's one question. Down.
Well, I will mention that in this budget, it was those people that I just mentioned, so, like the fire warden and the dog warden, those are stipends and those didn't mention.
Right, in the past, though, we have paid, Silvio an increase and, the cleaning person
Yeah, and
Nathan. would-
correct, and, I'm sorry, those three are in.
Yeah.
It's just any job that's just stipend based.
Yes.
Did not change, no.
I think the fire department did ask for an increase on theirs already anyway, this.
They did, they increase in their stipend. They deducted some of it from their budget, but it doesn't match from a different category, but. Yeah, they did. The other thing that, one of the things, if you look at the insurance, the unemployment went way up. It went from $100 to about almost $1,500. We used to be in a pool with the VLCTC, the Leagues of Cities and Towns, and I guess the state or the federal government said that was no longer legal, so that we're in a regular unemployment pool now, so.
Had to recoup all their losses from the last couple of years.
Really.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So that went up. That's something to see right away. So you see this brush cutting, so you weren't able to get an answer from
Yeah, so
Fiona?
the answer to that is, actually, it got bumped up a little bit, which is in this slide. Is, probably shouldn't be much cutting. Wants to work on the, Flatiron is, stuck between a river and a ledge. And really the most effective thing that he thinks we can do there is improve line of sight around S curves. And that's what is, and you need special machinery to do that with Grant. And that's what is meant by brush cutting.
Okay,
Has he thought of removing any of the ledge over towards Wolcott School Elementary end?
Yeah, I mean, the ledge can be, you can get a hammer and break out the ledge. He just felt it would cost more than his line of sight.
Because I think there's some of it, if he was to straighten it out a little bit in there, it would help.
Yeah, yeah.
Something like long-term improvement for it, more long-term.
But the only problem is I don't know if it runs onto some of the other features right away. That's the.
Well, that's part of the issue too, and even brush cutting, we have to look into that closely, because you might be cutting some of these trees down.
They may have to get their construct.
would, the ledge removal, if it was possible, help with the drainage? You know, cause you can't have any ditch, there's no ditching.
We'd almost have to add culverts to go into the river. Now you're going to have to get the state approval to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you add that runoff, which could contain salt, oil, whatever into the river, you're gonna scream.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest problems in that area.
Oh, yeah. It's almost a road that shouldn't be there.
The only reason it was there was because of the sawmill.
Yeah.
Where was that exactly?
For a year, we used to be a sawmill, just
Oh,
the other side of his towards the, what's that called? What was that? It's not.
East Delmore?
East Elmore. We used to be a furniture sawmill.
Oh,
We got the power off from that little
that brook,
brook,
and that runs pretty good.
especially in the spring of the year.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, Wolcott had 14 sawmills at one time.
Well, I read about it, but I'm a little confused of where they ever were.
No, there was,
Is that the one that would be considered in Pottersville?
no,
No,
where, what's his name, son? Tenney. Where Bob Tenney and his son lived, that was a big sawmill. He
Hmm.
actually had a side railroad track. Yeah. If you went into the river and looked at low in the summer, you can actually see the two tiers where that track went. But yeah, there was two on the East Elmore Road, they went on the Flatiron. And had this one here in the center of town.
I don't know what the sawmill, I don't know if the sawmill or
What
gravel was out across from my house.
And then there's like,
Probably could be some masons who they hold the other end of the water. Oil branch.
down there was one even lower than that. Down by the, what's his name there, it has the sheep.
is there any way, just throwing this out, and so these equipments are leased? Can you ever pay off the lease ahead of time?
Yeah. If you can.
Any other questions here?
Which ones were you thinking, like the excavator?
I wasn't, I'm just thinking, I like the thing, I mean. Sometimes, you know. Just. You know, we have ARPA money, what are we gonna do with it? I know we're having a meeting, You know, should we use some of it to pay off one of the pieces of equipment so that. We don't have such a high budget that, you know, equipment, just thinking, that's all.
Well, the other thing is, if you're only gonna add 10,000. To your equipment fund as an increase for later on, why don't you just use it to pay down one of the leases like the excavator or the loader?
Yeah.
Because then by the time it comes towards 2027, 28, 29, they're gonna be almost gone. And if you're only gonna get maybe 1%, 1.5% interest on $10,000, it's nothing where you can put it towards a interest.
Just to try.
Bonus play. To me, that's another way of looking at it, rather than trying to save it and save the extra payments. It's like a house payment on a 30-year mortgage.
Mhm.
If you make an extra payment every year, instead of paying for 30 years, you drop it to 22 years.
Well, if we were to use FEMA money, we have to spend it by 2024. We can't save it. We would have to just. Pay. Yeah. We would just have to pay, but that's just another option out there.
Another variable in the budget is the sheriff's, right now, it's. The worst case, it looks like 8%, best case could be 5%. And that's in negotiation that just, as we mentioned earlier, is not complete yet.
I think we offered 5 and Johnson offered 5 and they came back with 6.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard anything from my part.
I emailed Roger just to see where he thought we were in discussions. And I haven't heard back. He must be on vacation.
Do we have any more discussions on this budget? Things we need to research for our first meeting in January? Different options you want to look at?
Yeah. It takes a while to study the sheet, you know. It's worthwhile for everybody to kind of go down line by line, and I have percentages in it, so you can know if the line went up or if the line went down. By how much. The other thing that's new about this budget is it has IT category, which is now universal. So IT, things like lister, IT, zoning IT, has all been taken out of those departments and put in one department called IT. So, and you're not going to see percents up and percents down on that because we actually broke it down to like Nemrac and to.
You should just change Canon to copier, because the public might not know what that is.
Okay.
You know, this is off the subject, but are these color swatches something they're trying to pick a new color?
Mhm.
And so this room is being painted. And Nathan has done some of the work, Patrick also, he's got a lot more to go. And these are all color samples that have been the subject of a lot of things.
Hope you stay away from those two lower greens, that's English Public Works green, two-tone. That's been for the last 60 years. And you run into it in Canada too. They must have bought a lot of two kinds of green paint. It's awful.
Which one is the one now? I can't know. What people like?
Well, yeah, I think generally people were saying they like the lighter green, but Linda likes this middle green.
Oh.
Green is like minty and it's for a little girl's bedroom. It does not
Start where it starts, color tide meeting. That's
like it at all.
I think an excellent color is the one the walls are now. It keeps the room bright.
That's an option.
And off white.
Yes, like most of us.
Well, I'm not.
Well, I'm Irish with a trace of Portuguese, so yeah, it's.
That actually is interesting. And
You mean the like, so there's the brown and then there's the next one? Isn't that an off-white? Or is that too off-white?
Well, I think that has more gray in it, is what Nathan was saying.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a lot like would. Well, you know, there are a million.
I opt for off-white or paisley.
you know, choosing a color by committee is unbelievable.
Let's go over the nice flannel.
I don't want blue though.
Flannel?
Off-white is
White,
fine.
black.
No blue.
Okay.
Sorry for starting this.
Let's make it come where it's been going on.
Yeah.
For weeks.
All right, so let's,
Some peach. Yeah, right.
Okay.
so do you, anyone have anything for Kurt to work on for the next meeting on this budget so we can move on?
Can't think of anything additional, just,
Yeah. Okay.
How hard is it, this thing here?
Mhm.
If you like, do you have it all figured out, the formulas that city voted to pay off one of them? What that would look like? In terms of money for like a hundred. Okay. Thank you very much, hard work. Ready for project managers report?
Yeah, okay, so, as you recall, the last meeting, the request, to put up stop signs on the Gulf Road Bridge, similar to what we have here in the School Street Bridge. And so none of us being experts on, road signs, we invited, Ethan, who's with, V-Trans. And so he came out the other day and Dylan and I met him down at the bridge. And I told him what the request was. And his recommendation is to do nothing.
No signs?
No sign. And he did point out that, there's a big difference between a regulatory sign and a cautionary sign. And the stop sign is a regulatory sign. You put those up, it's actually the law.
Yeah.
And, you know, given the line of sight, the fact that it's on the straightaway, he said it's inviting non-compliance, which is just with V-Trans is a no, you don't do that. So he said, definitely not stop sign. Said if you want to put something up, what he would recommend is yield to oncoming traffic. It's the yield sign.
Yeah, that might help a little bit liability for those that might not just give each other a break.
So primary recommendation was, he thought it was fine. He didn't think anything needed to be done there. There are, the side signs, that's black and yellow, sort of, one of them's missing, so, we gotta put one of those up. And he said, you know, if you want to appease the public here, yield sign, yield on traffic. I don't know if you know how, I didn't know him before, but he's a wealth of information. And he knows the regulations about signage inside now.
Well, that's good that you actually got somebody that knew what they're talking about.
What we needed.
Yeah, we did it. So as long as that's okay with the board, I'm going to communicate this to the president and,
Oh, yeah.
we'll go from there.
And he was invited to go.
He was invited.
Oh, what?
He was invited to join our meeting at the bridge.
Oh, yeah.
In which side will this sign be posted?
Both sides.
Oh.
Both sides. So I attended a Department of Transportation seminar on a reasonable suspicion. And this is actually, I guess, a required course. And it is related to alcohol and drug use with drive-by truck drivers. Truck drivers. You know, it is all very practical, common sense information. But the one thing that did come out of it, that I think is important for the town is, to have a policy or to adopt a policy, on this issue. And VLCT has a model policy. I didn't put it in your booklet because it's like 25 pages long. I didn't want to do all that paper. But it's very comprehensive. And the reason that this is important to have a policy is, if sometime in the future, whenever there is a problem or somebody suspects a problem, you absolutely need to have a policy that they have all employees have signed off on, which gives you the guidelines as to how to address that employee. You know, if you need to compel them to go for drug testing, or you need to compel them for some kind of official follow-up, this is the guideline to do it.
Well, sounds good. We need it. Oh, we will need it in the future.
Yeah, somewhere, someday, somewhere, yeah, something like this is going to be. I can email this to everybody if you want to review it. I can have a paper copy here also. But I would suggest that we consider adopting this at our next meeting, if that's enough time for everybody to review.
Yeah.
I've read through it to the point of guys with thoughts. But it does, the important things in here is that it does cover, the legal process, what you can actually do. And as long as our, CDL employees sign it, get a copy and sign that they have a copy, we're pretty much in where we need to be. Richard Wolcott Road, as you probably know, I think in the last meeting, there was some ditching being done there, not only in Richard Wolcott Road, but also on the Clinton. And it was unknown as to who was doing the stitching. It was obvious that somebody was laying the cable, and it was Comcast that's laying this cable, and they did it through a subcontractor, and the subcontractor did not get a permit from the town, nor did they get permission from the owners of the private road, and they just went down there and laid this cable. And you know, actually did some damage to the road. And the Elmore plow truck got stuck in there, and so forth. So we did find out who the subcontractor was. We've been in touch with them. They claimed that they didn't know that they needed a permit, which is hard for me to believe, but anyhow. And but they did repair everything. And we have gone back to them and asked, you know, for them to submit a permit for the work they've already done. As Linda pointed out, that's our record as to where this cable is. It comes from the permit, so it's got to get there retroactively where you need to get a permit. You know, very, very apologetic and so forth and so on, but I think my estimation in talking to the foreman is they just didn't check a box. It was just bad management. So somebody got sloppy. Next thing is the Champlain oil parcel here in the parking lot here. And I guess really actually a question to the board, because if we bring this up as an article at town meeting, I think it would be wise to know what the offer is. You know, so that my question is, should we start negotiations? Should we start talking to Champlain Oil and say, okay, what do you want to celebrate? Yeah. And we are pending a brownfield study there, but I don't know where that stands at this point. You know, because the ground is now frozen and everything else.
Well, phase one, they don't really go in the ground. All they do is, they do research of what used to be there and that's what phase one is. They determine whether they need phase two. So underground storage, oil storage tanks, that's like maybe, that most likely will be a phase two.
Or they'd be liable to remove those anyway, but
They
they
are gone.
Yeah, they go.
Things are going, but probably the pollutants in the wood.
Well, they would go in and see if there was any spillage. That's what, the planning commission has, federal funding to do this for free for us. So they would go in and if they did find it, then it'd have to be some kind of remediation. What would remediation look like, you know?
Yeah.
Is it just undisturbed dirt? Cause we had to do one over here. And it just means we can't disturb that parking area. We just need
But I
to
think
gravel on it.
you know, the negotiation has to be pending any kind of result from the ground study. But I do think it might be time to just get a feel for what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And we should kind of get a feel for what we're thinking. So far, the comments I've gotten is that they should be happy to get rid of it and give it to us.
Yeah. That, white bus that's sitting on that property. Happened to drive by one day and there was a young couple. I don't know if they were insulating it. White plastic sheeting and they were frantically doing something, so I don't know what the deal is on that bus.
Oh, you mean the bus that's sitting over there?
At first I thought, it was the bus stop and they parked it there, but then I thought it was, the woman that lives across the street. The people were living there but visiting them, I'm not sure.
You know, they've got a VW bus that's running into the ground over
Well,
there.
that's a different.
I think it's a bit less loving care and restoration.
So my last item on really the same vein is, the sale of the East Hill property. If we can put that on as an article, and if so, keep the price.
Well, do we know anything, so Mr. Can't think of his name who came in, has he been back?
Oh, and it is.
No, Bill Bill Morrison, right?
Oh, who's looking to do the guy. No, I haven't spoken with him again.
He hasn't come back, and has, the adjoining landowners shown
I mean,
any,
there was initially some interest in it. I think Katie Black was interested.
but her husband was not,
Now,
and.
Bill Cotton was interested, and I think. But everything's kind of fizzled. I mean, nobody has follow-up interest.
Well, now that it's not an eyesore anymore, I think that's why. I think that's why, they just,
I mean, the most legitimate, that we've heard so far is, what's his name again? Bill.
Bill Morrison.
Because he is interested in, the water, you know, the whole, Bear Creek, is it there?
My biggest concern, I'm totally in favor of that. My biggest concern is that we would have. Well, I want it so people couldn't drive in there.
That's what he was talking.
I wouldn't want people to drive in there, and then I wouldn't want people camping in there.
No.
I think I would have to go and see it. I've driven by it, but I've never seen actually. Oh, I didn't realize it went out further.
It's a fairly big piece of property. It's
9 acres.
9 acres.
yeah, I haven't been by since it's been.
Yeah.
But it's chained off too. You can't get a car in there right now. But what Bill was talking about was it's a perfect access point to the swamp. And so he was looking as a parking spot.
Well, you could make it so that you could park right off the road, but not drive down in.
Yeah,
You'd have to walk in my mind.
yeah, well, when you see the property, it's easier to vision because there's nothing. It's just hidden behind some trees. So it only goes in a very short way, and that's the parking area.
Yeah, you're only talking maybe 150 feet, if that.
This is very,
Then it opens up.
yeah.
But that's good, solid, stable ground in that area, so you could park anywhere from 8 to 10 vehicles.
I think that's the only stable land in that whole Tamarack Creek area. So everything, and anybody that camps there's gonna be crazy, the bugs are outrageous.
Yeah.
Well, we get our share of it.
So that's it.
Well, they are decisions that we need to make because we need to get going on the warning.
Right. Would it be worth trying to get hold of Bill and see what he would consider giving us for
Yeah, I think so.
it? And if we could sell it, it'd be one less.
So what we told him at that meeting, or what I told him anyway, was it would be whatever it cost us.
Yeah, because I think he was saying the town should donate it.
Yeah, he wants it for nothing.
And so, yeah, then I thought he was going to check with some conservancy
Yeah, the same one that's gonna do the easement on the forest.
and see if they would be willing to pay the
Because
town.
wasn't it like $8,000, something like that?
Yeah, and that's in, well, we have those, that number in the minutes, but it was something like 8,000.
Well, it would be the attorney fees
Right,
Well,
as
the
well.
attorney fee, and the tear down fee, and.
Right.
the cost involved in
Yeah.
obtaining that property, not that we would make a profit, but that we would get that money back.
I don't think that number's in the minutes.
Well, we kind of threw a number out, but I don't think it was,
But it's easy to determine,
yeah.
we could put it towards the equipment fund.
I mean, even if you got 10,000, at least you would be getting a good share of your money back.
It's not really habitable land,
I think we should try to get our money back.
absolutely. Oh, yeah.
It's too bad you couldn't find someone from the state that would be willing to.
I think 8,000 to 10,000 is manageable, you know, if people really wanna preserve that area that love it,
Mhm.
that would be willing to contribute. You'd have to have a nonprofit or something though, that you would
Right,
be then there's the whole thing of, are they gonna be charged property taxes?
yes.
How far away is the UBM extension property from there? Is it?
It bugs up against the edge. Oh, not UVM,
Sterling,
Sterling, not UBM.
Well, Sterling wants to get rid of it. They don't even want.
I mean, they're running short of funds to pay for stuff.
I don't think it fits in with what they're teaching up there anymore. Cause they sold off the Center for Northern Studies
right.
building.
Oh, the Steve Martin, yeah.
Steve Young. Steve Young. But they used that land back there when it was the Center for Northern Studies, but not for Sterling.
Well, also, I'll start collecting the numbers on that. We can go back to the legal fee and we know what the tear down fee was. And anything else, we'll go back to history and think about. So I can come back with a real number.
I'll try to reach out to Bill and see if
Great.
he's moved on it, his thoughts,
That'd
and
be good.
if he's gotten any. You know, people that work with him.
He came with a neighbor,
Wolcott,
it goes, the neighbor that came with,
yeah,
yeah. Cause he was pretty, he was. Don't know when Bill getting it.
right. I think he's a former student, was he from Sterling or from Center for Northern Studies? He seems too young for Center. Center for Northern Studies,
yeah, I don't know, but he's a forester.
yeah.
Would Kate know any of the other, anyone in the state that would be interested in preserving it? that would be interesting.
See, it's just for basically preserving it, yeah.
Because that's quite a water quality area.
It is, that's a good way to look at that.
I mean, you got the drainage and it's. What you're saying now, swamps and marshlands will help
Right. Filter.
clean and filter out. Sediments, so you don't fill in the streams and rivers.
Maybe I should, call Megan. You know, maybe there's some grants out there, who knows, I don't know. So,
That's like part of the water, yeah, you probably try to tent stake anywhere on the line and get water.
mhm.
Well, not enough towards the road.
Well,
You get down in there, yeah.
Yes, my boots.
This is the only time of the year when it's frozen, you can get out in there.
yeah, preserve it. Just keep the idiots out of it.
So on I have a question on the budget, appropriations, so everybody that asked for appropriations last year is at the same this year. With the exception of the Craftsman siblings and,
Yeah.
Saplings, wherever they are. Yeah, and the Howard Nichols Center, they did not come back. That's surprising.
Well, their time isn't up. They have by law up until 40 days before town meeting. I mean, we like to encourage them,
Yeah.
but, they have till sometime the end of January. I know Clarina Howard Nichols Center just had a huge, fundraiser, so they're probably, been busy with that.
Okay. So, if the voters accept these appropriations, how does that affect the budget? Because this is money going out.
So we have a selectmen's budget. But then we have, any monies that are in the warning get added into it too.
Okay. Because this is, I mean, it's 17 to 18,000 dollars. And does that? I know the voters vote on it separate from the budget. But does it affect our?
So when we come to the last, article, through the warning, so we're going through the warning. In the warning is the social services, that used to be the sheriff, but it's not there anymore. And then we we look at the selectmen, so when someone gets up to make a motion, it has to include the selectmen's budget and the social services minus the revenue is the amount that we need to raise in taxes.
Okay. This is pretty, yeah, okay. I get it.
And if there were any other things in there, that included money.
Okay. We did get one, Wolcott County Mental Health Service, who we did not have before, required to petition. And their request was for $3,500, which is pretty substantial.
Mhm.
And the petition is sitting out here on the counter, and I think the only person who signed it is,
Ms. Klein.
I think. So.
Well, I something to, because we typed, you know, their, plea,
Yeah,
and it's like, oh my God, what they
service they provide, I think is, phenomenal. I don't know how they didn't ask for funds previously. I mean, yeah, I think it's unfortunate that it falls again to small towns, rural areas. I mean, we have people living in poverty and, it's going to fall on their tax dollars, to supplement these agencies, but they're providing a phenomenal service. It's, it's woe to small towns. I don't know.
What's that request is quite a bit higher than the other applicants, isn't
It is.
Yeah, it was more like 2,000 or something. I think it was a lot.
For 3,500.
Yeah,
The only other higher one is Memorial Health and
right.
Hospice.
Well, did the board put a cap on the request?
It's a petition. No, not really.
it? No, it's voted on in town meeting.
Yeah.
Now, the voters can change the amount.
Right.
If someone submits a petition, then it goes as is, but someone can stand up and say, I'd like to reduce it to.
Is it Johnson puts a cap on how much their appropriations
Stowed in.
stole?
Stowed
And I
in.
think Johnson's thinking about it too.
Still did.
Yeah, they say this is it, this is X amount.
Well, I think what happened was during COVID, you didn't have to petition. So everybody came out of the woodwork and they went to Stowe because they know that's what the money's at. And I think they got just
In it, they got overwhelmed.
and
They said a cap. Isn't it?
I
Is that a
feel,
cap on the total amount from social services or how much they would give each?
total. I believe that's what's still.
But if someone gives you a petition, I don't see how they can not. I think someone can fight that if they wanted to.
yeah, it's gonna hurt us a little, like you say, it has to go to the budget.
Historically, these things are voted in.
I've never known any of them to.
I've heard of them being reduced,
Mhm.
but never totally taken out.
But the thing with Lamoille County Mental is that they sent the petition, but
They get the signature.
Yes.
they didn't go out and, you gotta do a little work behind these, you can't. So it's sitting out here.
Okay, you said your report.
That's it.
Well, what is the select board review action on Long Valley Rail Trail update?
I think Deb put that on the agenda for some reason.
Well, are you gonna be on TV?
I don't know. Oh, well, not.
I just thought the board might want to have an update that WCAX channel 3 that went down Kurt at the rail trail this morning, and so you probably want to watch the news channel in case they do run something on there.
I don't get channel 3.
Oh, you don't? That's like all I get.
I don't get 22s.
Well, it's WCAX, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That's 3.
Yeah.
3.
They were just interested to know how, what Wolcott was feeling about the rail trail coming through and being finished. I asked her why they came to Wolcott, and they were actually really here to meet with the Agency of Transportation. And they wanted to go where the trail was finished.
Yeah, Fisher Bridge in here.
Fisher Bridge isn't finished either?
You know, they're still working on their abutments. Same as this bridge.
And where's the slide?
That's up here.
I think it's a wonderful project. The dumbest thing the state ever did, to let the railroad be torn up.
It was.
Because future generations will need that transportation.
Well, that's what who told us that actually, oh, Jackie. That actually, that's why the state came in and decided to take it back over, I think, from Mass, because it is still a trail bed, a rail bed. And at any point, they can build it back up. They own it, they didn't give it away. It's,
They're still.
I don't think it's anything that's gonna come up until
no,
our grandchildren are.
yeah.
But.
Or
It's the infrastructure thing that I was so disappointed they.
Well, the problem is, they were putting too heavy a locomotive.
Yeah,
They can't go over 100 ton.
no,
Anything over 100 ton, they tried 150 ton, you can see what happened.
oh yeah, they did.
And it failed.
Yeah.
They had it built for 100 ton and it was
Yeah.
fine. It's when they.
That was after Wolcott. And then it became Vermont, something railroad. Vermont Valley Railroad, such as stuff.
It's one of those things where someone put a really good container for it. Right off of Main. You could really go through the old track rights from there to New Hampshire to the New York Rail Yard. But I would probably reroute some of these areas and pass away from the rivers if I was doing engineering it.
So I'm going to adjourn the meeting and then we can talk. I mean, you can. Thank you very much. Center.
Are you back in?
Okay.
Did you say 9:30?